Have you ever made a card almost entirely out of patterned paper? I'm going to show you how using the new Lovely Layers Topiary from Honeybee Stamps. I have here the Textiles and Textures Celebrate Paper Pad, and you can see it has all of these beautiful different textile and texture pattern papers in lots of different colors. Now, for this technique of using all die cuts and layering them, I do recommend using a pattern paper that has some kind of small size of pattern on it. So I'm going to go through here right now and pick out some different papers. I'm going to use this paper here, which is beautiful for my oranges. So when I'm cutting out my paper, I just cut a piece that is big enough that the die will be covered by the entire piece of paper. So I've picked out all of the different pieces of pattern paper. I have blues for the planters. I have this fun neutral stripe for the actual tree base, and then I have a couple of pinks for the bow and a nice orange. You saw that. And I went with a light yellow for the pears and a darker yellow for the lemons. So you can see these all kind of have smallish sized repetitive patterns on them. I've got several different pieces for the greenery. I went ahead and cut everything out. It's all ready to go. I'm going to start with the pears, adding a little dot and taking this small leaf piece here and layering it over the top with a wax pickup tool, which makes the process much easier. So I'll repeat that with the remaining pears. Starting with the smallest pieces and putting them together helps so that you don't lose those small pieces. So I'll move on to my bow now, which is kind of my next smallest configuration of pieces. And I cut it out from both sides of the pattern paper. That way I can layer one side with the other side. So like I took the base of the solid kind of pink and then the next piece with the striped pink portion. And I'll layer those up back and forth all the way until I have everything put together. I always make sure that I add the glue on the back of my die cut piece while my tweezers are on the left hand side. That way I can flip it over and easily add it on top because I'm right-handed. You do the opposite for if you were left-handed. I think it just makes the process a little bit easier. And then again, for those tiny pieces, the wax pickup tool is so helpful. So off camera, I'll go ahead and repeat that process here for the other bow. So now I have a choice between the two of them when I get to that point. I'll move on to our little topiary trees. I cut two sets out for one of the trees and then the other set out for just one tree that's going to go in the center. So I always like to lay out my pieces in order. It helps me to visualize where everything is supposed to go. And what you don't see off camera is that I have the layering guide from Honeybee Stamps off to the left-hand side, which helps me figure out how everything is supposed to get layered together. So again, I grab the second from largest piece, add my glue and layer it over the top where it's supposed to go. For this piece, it lines up right along the edge. And then I can grab my next piece. This one can kind of go anywhere you want. And I'm doing it towards the upper left-hand side here. Another thing you could do is add some foam tape, or you could cut each of these pieces out twice and glue them together if you wanted added dimension. But see how that pattern paper just creates a really interesting look? Also, don't be afraid. I was a little bit scared as I was doing this because I thought, is this really a great idea, Charlene? But at the end, you're going to see it looks so good. Once all of those different pattern papers are all put together and they're next to each other side by side on your card, it gives a really fun look to the card. It doesn't detract at all. I think maybe if you did like one piece in pattern paper and then all the others in solids, it might cause that pattern paper piece to stand out more, which could be good if that's what you're going for with your card. But when you've layered all of the pieces using pattern paper, it gives such a lovely look and nothing stands out, but the pattern of the paper just makes it all look really interesting. So I went ahead, finished layering up all of the topiaries, and now I'm going to put all of the different fruits where I want them on the different bushes. I'm going to start by laying out the pears there in the center, and then I've got my oranges and my lemons on the two that are shaped the same. You could glue those directly, or you could kind of tuck them in here and there behind the various pieces. I wanted my fruit really to pop up, so I'm going to add some foam tape to the back of all of those pieces. Obviously not necessary, but I think it's a fun effect to have all of those little pieces of fruit popped up. So there's our finished pears all popped up. Looks so cool. And then I'll go through and I will repeat the process with the oranges and with the lemons. I use the little tiny foam squares, and I tend to cut them in half when I'm trying to pop up small things. Now, the base of the topiary tree here, you could glue it to the front or the back. I'm choosing here to glue it to the back because I don't want it to kind of take away from the fruit on the front. So I'll add some glue here to the top portion of the tree, and it will adhere easily right along the back of the top of the tree. So I'll repeat that then for my other two topiary trees. And now I've cut out this planter here with both sides of this blue pattern paper. And that's because I want to overlay the patterned piece over the more solid looking piece. So I used, kind of like how I did with the bow, I sort of switched it up and used the different sides of the patterned paper to put everything together. So I'll add some glue here to the back of the center top portion of the planter. This is another one that I think would look nice if you had some foam tape behind it to give it some dimension. And then I'm using this small piece that goes to it along the top, and I use that same more solid kind of looking pattern paper so that it would offset that nice floral pattern that we have on the main portion. For the two small planters here, I cut them out of two different pattern papers. It's a little hard to see on camera, but they look really gorgeous in person. There's this nice little embossed detail that you get from the dies. And I think I like this pattern paper here just a little bit better. I don't know, something about it with the texture really just made my heart happy. So I decided to go with those two. And then I will use the opposite side pieces for the two rims of the planters and add some glue here, and you'll see this smaller one goes with the one that looks circular that I have here, and then the slightly larger one goes with the taller planter, the thinner, taller planter. Once I have those, my topiaries are ready to go. So I took a moment to decide what I wanted to do for a background. Because my pieces have all of that beautiful pattern paper, I decided that a ink blended background would look really nice. So I have some mustard seed and some abandoned coral. I'm going to start by bringing the mustard seed here in from the right hand side, going all the way to the center, and then I'll flip my piece around and come in with the abandoned coral, doing the same thing so that it overlaps just slightly along the center, not too much overlap. And then I'll flip it back around and I'm going to repeat the process. It's the layers I find that really help to get you a nice, beautiful blend. And of course, the distress oxides are so easy to blend because of how creamy they are. So I'm coming in a second time here with the abandoned coral, taking it a little bit farther over towards the center. And then of course, this color will lighten up as it dries. Once it's dry, it ends up having a nice kind of pastel-y look to it. I decided I really wanted a darker color for the base pieces of my trees here. So I just brought in an alcohol marker, which is 04.3. We're still going to see that lovely pattern from the pattern paper, but I just wanted them to be brown instead of white. So keep that in mind. If you're unhappy with a color, anytime you are working with paper, you can always use an alcohol marker to come in and enhance or change the color of that paper. So I've got these ready. I've laid them out here on my background, pretty much where I think I'm going to want them to go. And I'll start with the center tree. Whenever I'm putting multiple pieces on, I either start with the center or I start with the end side pieces, so that way I can more easily center the centerpiece. Hopefully that makes sense as I'm saying it. So I've got them here. I'm going to add some glue to the back of the base of the tree, and then I'm using my magnets to hold my background in place on my glass mat so that it's not moving around on me, and I can get a better idea of where the center is going to be on my background. So I'm making sure that base piece is nice and lined up with the center line, and then I do want to leave a little bit of space at the top. I don't want it to go all the way to the top because when we're done, I want to still have a bit of a border around everything. So I've got my planter, remove the release tape, same kind of thing, lining it up using my glass mat. I don't know what I did before I had a glass mat. So handy and so easy to clean, right? So I've got my centerpiece there, and now I can come in and repeat that same process with my tree on the right hand side and the left hand side. Now, if you feel like you need some wiggle time, you can always add glue to the back of your foam tape as well, and that will make it so that you can move your foam tape piece around here and there. I mean, don't compare my work to your own work, especially if you are newer to card making. I've gotten pretty good over the years in making many cards at not putting glue on the foam tape. So if you need that, do whatever helps you and gives you the confidence that you need when you are card making. There's plenty of things that I'm still not great at, so just keep that in mind. So I've got my right hand topiary down, and I'm going to add my left hand topiary. Same thing, I want to keep that spacing at the bottom pretty consistent, so I'm making sure that those are up around in kind of the same place. I almost forgot about my bow here. I brought it in. I've got a couple of foam squares on the right and left hand side of the bow, and I'm gonna put it right in the center of that center tree. I thought briefly about bringing in 2 additional bows, maybe in a different color, but I was in a hurry at this point to finish off the card, so I figured 1 bow was good. I'm stamping out a sentiment from the So Special sentiments. These are absolutely beautiful, very fine script. I love the script on these. So I'm just lightly pressing down on my stamp to transfer the ink because I don't want those lines to be thicker than they should be, and just stamping multiple times. It looks so pretty. I'll cut it out here now with the coordinating die, and I've got some Low-Tack tape there to hold it in place. I tape everything, and it's mostly because I'm clumsy, because you could see here I end up moving things around, and yeah, lots of fun. So we've cut that out, and look at that beautiful, beautiful close edge on the die cut. I love that. I did off camera cut out 2 extra so that I can layer them up and make my sentiment a little thicker. Again, this is another one of those little extra details that isn't necessary. You could still have a beautiful card without it, but I love those added little details on a card. For me, I think they just add a lot to the card. So you can try it or not. I always try things to see if I think it makes a difference or if I'll like it, and sometimes I'm really surprised by how much of a difference something can make. So I'm going to put my sentiment here down along those 2 bottom planters. I'll add some glue to the left and right hand side. I could have put glue all the way across because it really wouldn't have mattered. It would have just dried in the center. But I will layer this right over those 2 planters. And adding those 2 extra die cuts also helps build up the strength of your sentiments if you're going to have them kind of floating over anything like I do here. Adding some glue to the back of the finished panel and putting it on an A2 size card base. and it would look great just like this, but again, I can't leave well enough alone. I love those extra little details. So I'm coming in here with some glossy accents, and I'm just going over all of the fruit. And you can see here, I keep my glossy accents in a small squeeze bottle. It makes it so much easier to apply in tiny spaces. When you're done though, you always want to make sure that that nozzle doesn't have anything in it, because otherwise those glossy accents will dry in there and it is a big pain to try and clean out your nozzle. So I always just take a little pin and run it in there several times and then make sure to put the cap on. So here is our finished card. Look at the beautiful shine that we have on those fruits. Oh, so pretty. All right, I hope that you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, friends, happy crafting.